Hello and welcome. I'm really pleased you could join me on the channel today because we're going to have a tour of my Lego city. Although there have been quite a lot of updates to the city in recent months, it's quite a long time since we had a good look around. And so today we'll be doing a tour of the city and having a look at the city layout, its main buildings and features. So stay close to the group, don't get lost, and enjoy the tour. Welcome to my Lego city. This is the city of Harmonia. This layout is meant to be in the style of a traditional European city or large town. There's a lot of history in this fictional city, which I won't explain here, but if you're interested, then please have a look at the fun travelogue style video that introduces the city and its backstory. The layout itself is very modest in size, because at the moment it fits on one table in this small spare room. I wanted more variety in my Lego city than I could get from standard Lego sets, and I'm interested in the challenge of designing and making my own buildings. So my Lego city is using a mixture of Lego modular buildings from the Creator Expert modular buildings range, my own designs for buildings, and lots of other layout ideas and features to make it more interesting. In the city at the moment there are 12 buildings that are my own creations, 3 that are modifications of Lego sets, and only 3 that are still Lego sets in their original form. And 2 of those are the 2 halves of the Pet Shop modular building set. We'll have a look at the buildings and other features as we go around. If you're interested in how I started with creating my city, there's also a video on the channel all about that. So, due to the space constraints I have here, my Lego city won't include the seaside, an airport, amusement park, or anything else that takes up a huge area. I'd love to have a railway, but that would take up too much space as well. And I've tried to minimise the area allocated to roads and vehicles so I can maximise the amount of space for buildings and maintain a feeling of a compact and quite dense city centre. So let's have a look at the current city layout. So far my city is quite compact, as it's built on just one table that's 75 centimetres by 150 centimetres, or 30 inches by 60 inches. This table can take 18 standard base plates, that's 6 wide by 3 deep. Any deeper would make it really difficult to reach the back of the table because the table is up against the wall at the back, so I can't access the other side. Now pretty much all of this table is used for the city. With 18 base plates, we could in theory have 18 standard sized modular buildings. But some of the buildings in the city are larger than a single base plate, and some are smaller as well, plus there are some spaces between buildings for squares and green space. You can see that there's the large square or plaza in the middle that takes up 4 base plates, and there are smaller squares or open spaces at each side that are currently only half a base plate. Even though this is a fairly small city layout, it has, at the moment, 3 different areas with rather different characters. On the left-hand side of the table, is what we call the Old Town. This area is only a couple of base plates wide and has older style buildings. We'll have a more detailed look at that in a minute. This middle part represents the city centre, and this is the main area of the current layout as you look at it. It has the large town hall and other buildings which face onto the main open square, which is called Harmonia Plaza. On the right hand side is the business district. This is a more recently developed area and has some larger and more modern buildings. Now we can start the tour of all three areas and have a look round the city in a bit more detail. So we'll start our tour here with a look round the Old Town area of the city. You'll see that it has older style buildings which tend to be smaller and built of traditional materials like wood, brick and stone. This monument marks the site of the entry point to the Old Town. We find that it's a good meeting point because it's on the edge of the plaza on one side and in this little square at the edge of the Old Town. It's also next to the famous old astronomical clock tower, which everybody knows in the centre of the city. It faces onto the main plaza, and we'll come back to have a look at that later. So in this little square you can see that the Euphoria Post and Telecoms Authority have been providing some lovely nostalgic style red telephone boxes which you'll find at various places in the city centre. Over on this side of the little square is the old fountain built into the side of the old astronomical clock tower. It's been here a long time and it's fed from one of the springs that emerge here. It is drinkable, and if you're interested in trying it, there's a drinking fountain on the inside of the clock tower where you can sample the spring water. It might not be to everyone's taste, but it's worth giving it a try to see what you think. On the other side of the square over here you have this lovely building which is being used as a French restaurant. It has a nice terrace upstairs which is a lovely location for a meal in this picturesque area of the Old Town. So from this little square we'll move on to Tower Street. Now we come to this narrow street in the old part of town. It's an old-fashioned street that isn't really wide enough for traffic, so it's naturally a pedestrian-only zone. You'll notice that all the buildings face onto this street on one side, because the buildings on the other side all face onto the main square. You may also notice that the Old Town area here has more old-fashioned lampposts and lanterns and brown paving, which gives it a distinctive character from the rest of the city. This area of the city has developed rather organically to use the buildings that I've made. So now the Old Town is based around this street, which runs from the front to the back of the layout. At the moment there are just a few buildings representing the Old Town area. I'd really like to develop this area into a more comprehensive medieval old town, but at the moment I'm constrained by the space available on this table and in this room. Starting at this end of the street we have the Honeyduke's Sweet Shop with its lovely traditional bow-fronted windows and green facade. This is a half-timbered building with a stone-built ground floor and a projecting timber-framed upper story. Notice the unusual turret roof at the front which makes this a very distinctive old building. Unfortunately, this area at the back of the restaurant isn't that picturesque, and I keep asking them if they can move this dumpster out of the street. Never mind, let's move on, and we'll go quickly past the laundrette, which is on the ground floor of this small brown building. Next to that we have the bank. This is a fine, solid building with its grey masonry walls and some interesting architectural features like its green windows and classical white columns. This bank used to be a corner building but was converted and straightened out into this larger building, which still keeps the same architectural style and ornate windows as the original. Now, if we can go past the fountain, we can squeeze through this narrow part of the street to take a quick look at this end. Here we can find the Katie Corner House, named originally due to its being built at an angle to the street and its original proximity to Katie's Corner, which is the site of the monument where we started the tour. Okay, so now we're going to find our way back to the monument at Katie's Corner, and we can have a look at the main plaza. Okay, here in the centre is the main city square, which we call Harmonia Plaza. It's the main public open space here in the city centre. The square has our large, beautiful fountain in the middle that was built specially for the city centre. It has 4 lobes with a fountain in each lobe, and there's a central column with a statue at the top, and if you look up carefully you'll see that statue representing the peaceful and harmonious nature of the city. So we'll just take a walk round this square and I'll point out some of the major buildings. Be careful as you walk around. The square has a lot of features that are useful for residents and our visitors, like city maps, seating area, bike racks and fancy lampposts, and the square is always busy. Facing onto the square, on this side, is the Parisian restaurant. This is a beautifully detailed building with a certain je ne sais quoi about it, and it's such a perfect building that it doesn't need any modifications to fit right here on the main plaza. Next we come to the old astronomical clock tower, which is here, facing onto the plaza. This building has been here a long time, as it was built over 500 years ago, and it's one of the main tourist attractions of the city. It has its 2 large astronomical clock faces and various indicators that show not only the time, but the phases of the moon and the planets. You can visit the inside of this tower, and it's definitely worth a visit. Inside, if you go upstairs, you can see the workings of the clock, and there's a museum about astronomy and the history of the old astronomical clock. You can also visit the ground floor, where there's a drinking fountain at the base of the tower, and you can sample the local spring water. You can even buy bottles of the water if you like it. You're of course welcome to come back after the tour and have a look round inside the tower. Next to the tower over here is a brownstone townhouse. Then of course we come on to the town hall, This is the new town hall, built in the 19th century when the expansion of the city beyond its old medieval footprint was redesigned and much of it was rebuilt. Inside this building you'll find the mayor's office and some of the administration offices for the city, although there is a function room that can be used for civic receptions or public meetings. If you look up, you'll see the town hall clock at the top of the building facing onto the plaza, and above that you'll see the carillon or set of musical bells. Okay, over here on this corner of the square is a small green space with an old tree that I'm pleased to say is being left to grow and provide a nice shady sitting area if you need somewhere for a quiet rest. Moving round, we come to this traditional city mansion with its impressive facade, also facing onto the plaza. This is another very solid building with its stone-built ground floor and the lovely columns supporting the brick-built upper floors with some interesting details. Now, the city has recently placed these trees on the square, which provides a bit of shade on this side of the square. There is some discussion about these trees and whether there should be trees on the other side of the square as well. So on this side we also have this little yellow townhouse which has survived the redevelopment of the square. But next to it they've built a more modern apartment building with a cafe on the ground floor and a nice seating area outside. The cafe is quite popular and it must be doing good business as it's expanded out onto the plaza here and has installed this extra seating with these nice parasols. This might be a nice spot to stop for a rest after the tour. So now we'll go through this little alley and we'll do the last part of the tour, which is to have a look at the business district. Now, as we come through, we arrive in this area of the city, which we call the business district. You can see that the buildings here are more modern in style and some are rather taller than the older buildings in the rest of the city. Where we're standing now is called Skyline Plaza because of the high-rise skyline in this area. And we're very pleased to have attracted investment into the city in the form of this research institute. This is called the Ensgrave building and is the anchor building for this fairly new business district. This building is a research institute and there are some pretty clever scientists and engineers and their support staff that work here, and I understand that they're looking at future technologies such as robotics and energy generation and other things. You can see that there are other office buildings being developed here, so this is a growing new area of the city. You may be wondering about this sculpture here in the square. This is the 100 subscriber monument, which commemorates the time in 2021 when this channel reached its first 100 subscribers and could adopt its own channel name. So the city decided to erect a monument to this event. The sculpture has faces on all four sides. It was originally placed in Harmonia Plaza, but it was felt that the modern style of this sculpture was more appropriate to this modern area of the city, so it was moved into this square. Over there you'll see the back of another building that's a rather nice pet shop. So we're nearly done with the tour. I'll just take you back through here to the main plaza and we can finish off at the monument where we started the tour. So here we are. Thanks for joining me on this tour. I hope you've enjoyed this tour of the city centre of our lovely city, and please continue to have a look round on your own. Perhaps stay for a coffee or visit the museum inside the old astronomical clock tower. If you'd like to express your appreciation, you can always buy me a coffee using the link in the description below, or just hit that like button below this video to support the channel. Of course, feel free to look round the rest of the channel. Don't forget to hit the bell button to be notified of new videos, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos on my mocks, builds, other LEGO stuff, and updates on the LEGO City. I'm so glad you could join me. It was lovely to see you. Thank you very much and take care.